string players make dynamic changes with the right arm and their bow by moving faster and going closer to the bridge. This is all in bowing. This, I believe, is called Bowing One Topics. The simplest way to the conductor or orchestrator to have the strings play louder is let them use more bow. Okay, so loud passages need more bow, softer passages can use less bow. Okay, that's your general basic idea. And string players can get very frustrated if they're asked to play forte, but they have a lot of slurred notes. And consequently, the reverse is as well. You know, if they're asked to play very softly and you have not marked anything that's slurred, then normally they're just going to change it. We're just going to make it happen. We're just going to do what we have to do. That happens a lot with professionals. Just kind of change your music. So this is some basic concepts. So your strong beats are down bows. Your weak beats are up bows. So in a 4/4, it down, up, is generally, you know, obviously the way it's going to go. In a 3/4, down, up, down, up. Okay, unless you're trying to change the pattern around for some sort of kind of beat reason. Normally we can do it that way. Diminuendos are down bow. We're going from the this is a bass bow. Okay, this is called we call this a German bow. It's a little different than we're going to see with a violin bow. Let me just hold your bow up if I may. Thank you. So just a different grip. It's the same thing. So this is the frog for the bow, and they both have a tip that's about the same size. Bass bow obviously is a little bit thicker piece of wood. It's got to get a string moving. It's a little bit bigger. We call this a French bow for. Thank you.
Why is it curved? Hers is pretty straight.
Well, it's subtly curved if you looked at it. If it wasn't straight, if it was no curve, it would not play very well. It needs to have a natural sort of a curve. Otherwise, it's not going to bounce very well. When we go on the string, I'll show you. So you can review this. This is just kind of a handy chart to sort of review some of the basic principles. These are probably our most frequently used bowing. Now, détaché sounds like detached, but it's really not. Even though the Italian might mean that way, detached just means separate bow. It doesn't mean accented. It just means a separate bow. Very common conductor may say détaché at this place. That doesn't mean you have to make it aggressively short or aggressively detached. It just means a separate bow. Legato is a smooth bowing. Spiccato is not staccato. Spiccato is also short, but it's a bouncy bow. The bow bounces off the string. I'll show you what I'm talking about. The bow bounces off the string. Okay, that's just natural bounce. That's why you want the bow to have a curve. That sounds very different than. Right? That's right in the string. Sometimes stuff has to be played right in the string. Other times it's. When you have a whole section of people doing this, it's very clean because it's all got a little bit of separation to it. And that's why spiccato is a very handy technique. And there's a certain tempo, the bow jumps off the string. It wants to go off the string. It goes off the string naturally. Other times, it can be a discussion. Where that comes in with a concertmaster once again will say, do you want us to do it in the string or off the string? Those are our two basic concepts that we have to deal with. Staccato is in the string. That's just short notes. Right? Staccato is a little different than the word spiccato. Detached, separate from each other. Jeté, ricochet, the bow bounces. Bump, ba-da-da-da-dum. Usually in a triplet motion. So it's kind of dropped on the string. This is not used frequently. It's used sort of in a Spanish or sort of kind of gypsy-like music. It's usually used. What was that? And then coleño is played with the wooden part of the bow. That's when the this is the bass, by the way, in case you haven't figured that out. This is the coleño. You use the wood of the bow. but string players don't like to do that because they have expensive bows, you know, and sometimes you see composers writing forte or fortissimo con legno, and that's really not going to fly very well, you know. In those situations, string players will bring pencil, you know, and just kind of stick.
Carbon fiber.
Or carbon fiber bow. Or I have a friend in the bass section who has a drumstick, you know, and he a drumstick and he hits with the bass, and it works pretty well, you know, for that.
Is it rough on the strings or not really?
Not so much on the strings, but more on the bow. Jay,
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you illustrate the top example?
Jate?
Yeah, could you play that?
It's sort of. It's a little awkward on the bass, but sort of a bouncy bow like that,
Yeah.
going in one direction like that. You know, it's something like that. You know, it's this could also be written separately. Really good, right? Which is probably in a lot of ways more accurate.
It's going to be cleaner probably,
A
right?
little bit cleaner. Yeah.
That's the question, the markings on the bottom there, I understood those to be staccatissimo.
Yeah, you're right. This is I think I did that to make a little difference between the short note. Yeah, this is your normal staccato. This is staccatissimo, a shorter staccato. Yes. No, you're right about that. Now we talked a little bit about this. Example 1 is correctly marked, right? We have 2 notes for the down bow, 2 notes for the up bow. Now here, this is confusing. This is incorrect because you have a bowing indication, and then you have a phrasing that's going over top of it. So the slur marking contradicts what the bowing marking has. Okay. String players will figure it out, but it's just, you just don't want to do it. Slurring the same pitch. This is a big problem. I try to get my students not to do it. So for instance, it happens, look at this example here. We've got here, more common mistake. So it's a pattern, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, right? Unfortunately, number 1 has got 2 C naturals, right? So the player cannot articulate, oh, shucks, I'm sorry. You can't articulate the 2 C's as a slurred note. When you have a slurring marking, that means you don't articulate it with the bow. Right, so it means, I'm going to hit this thing, I know. This is my little bib. So the way this is written is something. Right, because this is written as, when it's slurred, it means I don't go. I don't do 2, I don't separate the notes. It's tied together. It's tied together. So consequently, it should be written this way with 2 tenuto markings on the top of the note. So it's, I'm going in the same, I can play 2 notes in the same direction. I can play 4 notes or something. It gets a little awkward. I don't really want to do that too much. But I can do something like that. Those are the same notes. Okay, but I can't play 4 notes, I can't play 2 notes without a marking on them because it would just be half notes. Does everybody follow the distinction I'm making? Okay. So consequently, if you have a situation like this, you either mark it with a tenuto, which is the line. We'll talk about articulations, or you put it a staccato note. So there would be something like shorter. Or okay. So it's a little, a tiny kind of a thing, but it becomes kind of confusing. Obviously, you don't need another up bow marking if you have a slur. Common mistakes, repeated bowings. Remember, you need to alternate the bowings. After down comes up, after up comes down. The string players need to alternate the bowing markings. Bowing variation. So this is about 7 different ways that you can bow passage, for example. As the louder the dynamic is, the less notes that should be slurred. So the first example is forte. So it's all separate. And that's loud, okay? It's all separate. That works perfectly. As I want it to be softer, I do more note slur. The second example is okay, I'm slurring 2, and I have a combination. The next is a little bit softer. Okay, the next example is I'm slurring even more. Now I'm going to slur a whole measure. Right. The last example, I can't do it any softer than that. Right? If I really want to, I can push the bow, I can make an ugly kind of a sound to try to make, even in a slur, louder. I can, I run out of bow. I'm running out of bow. If I really sat there and, I mean, I could do it, but there'd be almost no point to do it, right? So, this situation, as we get softer, we have more notes in the bow. Yes?
So the longer or the louder the dynamic, the less bow you have to work with.
That's right. The louder it is, the less notes you want to have slurred. Because the more we move the bow, we are gracefully able to play louder. So now, this chart works. Now bowings have to also be balanced as well. So for example, this is not balanced. You've got 3 beats in one bow, and 1 beat separate, and then you have this separate again here. So if you were to write this for the strings, I mean, they would attempt to play it, I guess, but it would be awkward. Because what happens is, now I'm here, and I've got to get the C and sort of recover. Or I have to play a little bit more games. And this example too, it looks a little bit cockeyed, doesn't it? Separate and then slurred. There's no pattern to these two, right? So if you write this for the strings, or if you gave this to me, I would say, well, why are you writing it this way? You know, and you would say, oh, well, it's got to be that way. You know, it's early, that's my music, like, yeah, okay, fine. But then that's what it is. But you want to have patterns with music. You know, you want to make things easy. The string players, you know, you don't want them to sit there struggling over your bowing indications.